crush his bike. I know, he's here. We're thankful for that. Trust me. All right. We're going to be, of all places, we're going to be in a book today that takes the most criticism when it comes to our walk as far as Christianity. Now, today is September 11th, and 15 years ago, the act that will define most of the younger generations took place, and it's now considered history. And the reason it is now considered history is because for the first time, kids are going into high school that were not born when this happened, which is really hard to believe because you think about that, you're like, oh my goodness, is that much time really taking place? And it has. And so today we're going to talk about, amongst each other, this conversation we're going to have about keeping that fire. How do we keep that fire burning within? Because with 9/11 we talked about that we will never forget, we will never forget. But there's kids nowadays who are just going to get into high school that don't even know about it. And so when you have the conversation around it, everyone starts it the same way. This is where I was. I remember right where I was. I know the exact place that I was. And they share about it and then share what they saw. And even though we all saw the same thing on TV, many of us weren't actually there, and it's a different perspective, obviously, when you're there at Ground Zero or any places that these things took place. But how do we keep that fire burning? Now, today also happens to be the day where the NFL starts, and because of that, I think it's a great correlation because every year we have these hopes, and every year our team, this is going to be the year, and this is what we're hoping for. Maybe this is the guy that was finally going to pan out as a draft choice, or this is the running back that's going to take us up the next level, or the quarterback that's going to actually have his jersey sold for more than 1 year, whatever it may be. I don't know why you laughed. That wasn't a joke. So, okay. But you're hoping that this is that year. And so there's that fire that burns within. And for some teams, for some fans, that fire lasts for about 16 games. For some, it lasts for up to 19 games. For some, we get about halfway through the season. And sadly, for some, we get to the opening kickoff. And so we have this struggle. How is it every year we keep coming back and we keep coming back? And there's a marker that says this is the beginning of that NFL season. This is the beginning of basketball season. This is the first pitch for baseball. There's always these markers that we have. But the one marker that we don't really have that is different for each one of us and we don't reflect back on is our marker of when we started that faith walk. And so I ask you, what is the time? What is that date? What is that moment that you can point to in your history that says, this is when I was on fire the most? What would your answer be? Because if your answer is, well, it's when I first got saved. Your answer could be, well, when I got baptized, I really took this step. I took it public. I shared with people that this means something major to me. It was when I took a step into ministry. It was when I walked down the aisle. It was when I went and served on a mission trip. It was when I helped out just to help out because I knew that it was not only the right thing to do, but God was calling me to do so. There was the moments that we all had. But you know something? If that moment wasn't the last week, then that fire is going out. For some of us, we look and we're like, that fire is nothing but a spark. For some of us, they're just some ashes and they're kind of smoldering. And yet, deep down inside, there's nothing, and it's gone. How is it then that we keep this fire burning? How is it that we refuel it? How is it that we have it going so that people, when they see us, they see something different about us? They see someone that's representing God. They see someone that's being a light. They see someone that fire is going to burn no matter what. We just had the Olympics here this past summer. And this was the first year they had this small flame, but the flame kept burning the entire time. In fact, the torch is carried through the country that is hosting the Olympics, and they have markers, and different people that are famous from that area go through and they'll pick up that torch and then hand it to the next person, and the next person, the next person. As they go to the final one, those final ones are the ones that are the most famous within that country, that represent that country in such a way that everyone's like, oh, I remember when. Or, oh, that was such a great person to choose. And that's the person that lights that final flame that keeps that flame burning. But as our walk as Christians and our walk as believers, The only one that can carry that torch for you, is me. The only one that can continue to have that torch burning, that can light that flame, is you and is me. And we have to make the decision that it's a torch that we want to carry and continue to burn every day. So where should we start? Well, we should start in the book that, once again, is the most criticized when it comes to our walk as a Christian, and that is Leviticus. Now, if you ask Christians what is the book you would least like to read, it's this one. Because it's a bunch of rules and regulations and all these things that were going on, that you do it this way, you do this way, you handle this offering this way, you burn things this way, and then it gets into all these kind of rules. Now, these rules that it has, these rules are gone. Some people want to criticize people. Well, if you're a Christian, why do you eat shrimp? Because in the Bible it says you shouldn't eat shrimp. It's in there. Who wears cotton and wool shirts? Anyone ever combined? Okay. You can't wear those. It's in Leviticus. It says you can't wear that. Okay, who has ever wronged their neighbor? No one has? Who wants to be honest now? One to hell. There we go. All right. It's a reminder. Okay, hold your hands up, because we're going to go out, we're going to start gouging some eyes out. Who wants to go first? I got my thumb right here. Got to pop that out. Andy actually, I'll do it. Gina's like, I'll do it for him. Okay, there we go. That's love, right? But there's rules in Leviticus that we don't have to follow anymore. So when people want to take you to the book of Leviticus, you can stop and say, you know what? It's great that you know every single rule. You know everything about the guilt offering. Let's talk about grace and what was shared when Jesus Christ came to die for you and die for me. Because that's the flame that I want to keep burning and that I want to share with you. It's a loving one. It's a caring one. It's a giving one. But you have to start from before to understand how it is that we're going to keep this fire burning. And so I'm going to give you some steps today. But it's up to you whether or not you take these steps and then use these steps in your everyday walk. Leviticus, and we are in chapter 6. Now there's 5 different offerings throughout the book of Leviticus. And they are the guilt offering, the sin offering, the fellowship offering, the grain offering, and then we're going to talk today about is the burnt offering. Now I know that when you talk to people that aren't believers, they want to focus on the guilt offering, right? Because let's carry the guilt. I've carried this guilt, I've carried this guilt. And for a lot of us, we do that. We carry this guilt of our past with us. You know, I feel if I'd have just done this, if I'd have just made this decision, if I'd have just, waited for God to move, if I would have just allowed this to happen. And many times for each of us, that hasn't happened. So we hold on to that guilt. Sooner or later, we've got to offer that over to God. But the burnt offering, so that you know today, the burnt offering is something that was done daily. But it's also an offering that we do voluntarily. It's something that we choose whether or not to do. But in the Old Testament, this was God talking to His chosen people, the Israelites. So this is Old Testament. Once again, this is the law. This is what was taught to them. And yet we can still learn from it. Starting in verse 12. I'm going to read through the verses and we're going to go back and go through each one. It says, the fire in the altar must be kept burning. It must not go out. Every morning, the priest is to add firewood and arrange the burnt offering on the fire and burn the fat of the fellowship offerings on it. The fire must be kept burning on the altar continuously. It must not go out. So there was an offering that was taking place. And usually this was a ram, a goat, a bull, something along those lines that was put on this altar. And also on top of, that was placed on top of this wood that would continue to have the fire to burn. Because it could happen that if that ram or bull or whatever didn't have the blood completely drained from it, that blood or whatever was in that bowl, or if it was so big, it would cause it to smoke and put that fire out. So they had to be very careful to do so. And so God says to the Israelites, says to Moses, the fire in the altar must be kept burning. It must not go out. And then He starts to give us these steps. He says every morning the priest is to add the firewood. So the first thing we look at is He's saying in the morning, the first thing that you should start with, if your fire is just a spark, if your fire is smoldering, if your fire really isn't there, how are you starting your day? With the youth group this week, we talked about some things that they did. They said, okay, when you wake up, what's the first thing that you do? What's the first thing you do? And there were so many different answers. One person's like, I hit the snooze button. One person's like, I take a shower. One person's like, I roll over and go back to bed. And then I roll over and I go back to bed. And then I roll over and go back to bed. And then mom and dad are going, would you get up? Would you get up? Would you get up? Anybody have a child like that? is anybody a child like that? Okay? Is anybody an adult like that? Okay? It's something that's very normal for a lot of us to do. How is it that you start your day? Do you start your day every morning with that fire? It could be devotion time. It could be reading time. It could be prayer time. I gave you one last week where you read the proverb of the day. Today's Proverb 11, starting with that proverb. A friend of mine started this week and he shared with me. It's amazing because many times they talk about wisdom and they tie other things in with wisdom, and it's the exact opposite. He's like, I find that really interesting. But it's the wisdom that we seek. But it's sin that can ensnare us. But do you start your day? Do you start your day every single morning with that fire? If you look within, there's only a spark there. If it's just smoldering, if you can't see a fire at all, then the answer is no. So we start the day with God. Next thing is, watch what happens. It says the fire must not go out every morning. The priest is to add firewood and arrange the burnt offering on the fire. So he has to add wood to it. He needs to add the fuel to it. But at the same time, he's got to arrange it in such a way that the fire will continue. Now, the first cooking that was ever done over a fire was obviously, it was an open fire grilling kind of thing, right? And nowadays, who does most of the grilling? Men do, right? Men cannot wait for those 3.5 weeks that we have of grilling season in Ohio. And so they go out, and I mean, it's like you can't have too big of a grill. All right, if they've got like the big lid, you go up, you can do 2 lids, if you can go to the side, if it's got burners on it, okay, if it's got multiple levels, I mean, we'll cook anything. We'll throw stuff on there, and you'll have like steaks and chicken and burgers and hot dogs and veggies and mushrooms and all these things coming out, and your wife comes out and she's like, it's just the 2 of us tonight, right? And the guys are like, it's grill, and it's got multiple, and I have to use and invite everyone in the neighborhood over. But they can't because all the other guys are over there with their grill, so it makes it very difficult. Do you know why grilling was invented? Because men, we're a simple kind of breed. Thick skulls, right? Club our meat till it's dead and then throw it on the spit, right? But it's very easy for us. It's very simple. Like if we need to get away and clear our minds, we just go out and grill. Great thing to do. The fire's there. We know where the hottest spots are. And you think about this, on your grill, you know exactly where it is. You don't want to share your grill. Another guy's come over and say, hey, you want me to grill? You're like, oh, no. That's the Grill Master 72,000, and you're only at 65,000. You're not ready for this. You got your tools, you got your belt, you have everything ready to go. You're going. You don't get scared if you eat because you're taking little bits and pieces along the way, right? You're moving it all around, but you know your grill better than anyone. And so when you're cooking, you know that this is the hot spot, and this is not quite as hot, and you have to be careful here. And so you'll start, and I'm going to take these burgers, I'm going to move those up from the hottest, I'm going to go to the medium, then I'm going to the lightest area, and I'm going to keep them warm, we're going to keep everything going, right? We know how to grill and how to move stuff. It's biblical. These priests knew where the hottest parts of the fire were. They knew where to put the firewood. They understood it because they had to have this fire burning and keep this fire burning. So we need to arrange our schedules and our days so that we keep that fire burning. We schedule things everywhere. We schedule lunches. We schedule meetings. We schedule time together. We schedule prayer time, devotion time, quiet time with God. We don't schedule those, do we? We don't take that time in our busy schedule to schedule those times. Many of us, I'm not saying everyone, but if we're going to keep that fire burning, we have to schedule those times. But here's the thing, we don't have to separate God from those meetings. We don't have to separate God from those lunch times, from the coffee we have together, from picking up our kids, from driving somewhere, from being on the phone. We don't have to separate it, and yet we do. Is it important to arrange the time with God? Absolutely. But what about taking Him in every meeting that we have? In every engagement, in every person that we're going to meet? How about with our spouses? How about with our finances? How about with our children? How about with our neighbors? To keep that fire going and to keep that fueling, we've got to arrange that so that we recognize that fire and keep the fire burning in the hot spots, in the medium spots, and in the low spots. Moses continues, and he shares this with us. He says, every morning the priest is to add the firewood and arrange the burnt offering on the fire and burn the fat of the fellowship offerings on it. One of my favorite parts, anytime that there's a steak, is that little part where the meat hits the part of the fat and it turns brown. Like most women, they're like, no, just stay away from the fat, right? So they want that middle part. I want that part that's got that little part of a gristle, dark. Every guy in here knows what I mean. Women don't know because you never. Once again, we're simple. We cut that part off and we eat it, so you never get a chance at that part of it. But it's where those two hit that there's something special about it. Okay, ladies, I'm going to share something with you. Because you don't know, because you're not the girl master 72,000, you're at the 10,000. You've got a long way to go, right? When that fat starts to drip and it goes in the fire, it just shoots up. It stokes that fire. It fuels it, gets it going even more. And so we get that going a little bit, and then we turn that thing over. We have to be very careful not to make it black. We want it to be brown, because that's perfect. And so we'll flip that back over and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And what it says here is that fat fuels that fire for the fellowship. We were not meant to be hermits. We were not meant to be alone. We were not made that way because we have a God that is a relational God that wants to spend time with us. He walked millions of people across the desert just to get them to their chosen promised land. And every day there are millions and millions and millions more that are so far away from Him because they don't even understand how much God loves them. And on Sundays, there are so many more that are sitting at home that just need to know that, hey, you can be a part. And we want you to be a part. And you need to know that you're loved. Many people today are going to sit and focus on what happened 15 years ago. But sadly, many are going to forget. And now we're in a generation where they don't even know. Why? Because that fuel, that fire isn't continuing to burn, and we aren't sharing it. But it's the same way when it comes to your faith and my faith. How will the children ever know? How will our neighbors ever know? How will other students ever know? How will those who we work with ever know if we are not showing and sharing the fire that burns within? So the fellowship side of it's important. And then the last thing here. Watch what happens. The fire must be kept burning on the altar continuously. It must not go out. Listen to verse 12. The fire on the altar must be kept burning. It must not go out. Listen to verse 13. The fire must be kept burning on the altar continuously. It must not go out. This is repeated because it is so important. Because our fire goes out. Basically what we've done is we've turned our back on God. And yet none of us want that. If I ask you today, do you want to fuel that fire? Some of you right now are going, man, I need to fuel that fire. There needs to be that spark. There's so many things that are getting in the way, I can't even see God. I'm so beaten up with debt that I don't even know where to go next. I'm not even sure if my spouse loves me anymore. I'm in the worst job, dead-end job in the entire world. And then for others, there's some excitement that's going on. There's some excitement in the fact that, hey, guess what? I'm starting into a new job. I'm starting in a new position. God is bringing the right people into my life. God is showing me things that I've never seen before. I'm so excited about the next step that I'm taking. And then for many of us, we're just kind of stuck in the middle. I'm kind of in a spiritual desert, not really around anyone, not really spending a lot of time with God. I mean, I know He's there, and I recognize it. The problem is that, I don't know, I just don't really have that feeling of really turning to Him right now or focusing on Him right now. I'm just not really there. But there's something that takes place in these verses that are the key for us to continue the fire burning. Let's read through them again. The fire in the altar must be kept burning. It must not go out. Every morning, The priest is to add firewood and arrange the burnt offering on the fire and to burn the fat of the fellowship offerings on. It must not go out. So the first thing is, this isn't all about feelings. Today when Mike and Brenda and Cody got up here to sing, they sang America the Beautiful. It was our choice whether to lift our voice up or not. How many of you sang along? Guess what? You didn't sing along to one song or two, but you sang along to three. You lifted your voices up. And so when it comes down to it, is God worthy of your praise? I don't feel like it today. I don't really feel like focusing on God. I didn't feel like it yesterday, and I didn't feel like it the day before. The fire continues to go out. We were meant to worship and praise in the good times, in the rough times, in the struggles, in the down times, the past that we hold on to, the things that we try to fix. Do we stop enough to say, God, I'm going to praise you through this? It means lifting our voices and our hearts to Him. That's where we start. The second thing is, you and I have got to invest into others. Somewhere. Somehow. Where are you serving right now in ministry? If I ask you, what is your ministry for God right now? What's your answer? Is it, could you get back to me in a week? Or maybe 2 weeks? Give me a month. You know what? Give me 3 months. Hey, can we talk about this next year? If you've been sitting here for more than 6 months in this church, I'm going to share this with you. This church wants you to be focused on serving somewhere. Even if it's for the little kids in the back. We have to do a background check on you, but we still desire that for you. Because when you dive into serving others, God shows up there because they're believers that are coming together. It's the fat of the fellowship. You get to chew the fat together about God. It becomes your ministry. It becomes who you are, and it focuses on whose you are. So if you're not serving, you need to challenge yourself. If you're just going through the motions, if you're just treading water, if you're barely getting by, if you're in the spiritual desert, you need to challenge yourself. Where is it that God needs you to serve? Because you need to have a ministry. And if you're a parent, your kids are watching. They're going to learn from it. If you're a grandparent, it's the same thing. They're watching. You're going to learn from it. But God made you and I to serve others. You know how I know that? Because God sent His Son, Jesus, to serve and love others. He gave us the example. And the last thing is, some of you say, save the best for last. Some of you say, I save the worst for last. You choose, I'm good with it. What do you give? I will know more about you, and you will know more about me if you take a look at my checkbook as opposed to the good book. Because the last thing that people do is give, and the first thing that they take away is what they give. And yet, we know the importance of a local church and reaching out to others. But we stop and we hoard, and we're like, oh my goodness, the only time that God challenges you is with the most important thing that's going to keep you away from God. How is it you're giving? God says, challenge me on it. I'll show you. A lot of times we think, oh, that means I'm going to become rich, or I'm going to get rich quick, or I'm going to be driving a better car, or all of a sudden this is going to be opened up. I'm going to tell you that may not happen, but what will happen? God will bring people in your life. God will show you people in your lives. God will bring people alongside you. All of a sudden you're like, oh my goodness, I am so much better off because of how God opened the doors. And I blocked it personally because I didn't want to give. We're all meant to give. We are all meant to serve. It's in each one of us. Now, once again, this is all the Christian side, right? We're going to go back to the Old Testament. So how do we tie that to the New Testament? Because this is all about the offerings. This is all about, putting things on the altar and burning, animals, all that kind of stuff. All that stuff's gone, right? But they're all good parts of a message for each one of us. I want to start my day with God. I want to start with that fire. I want to refuel that fire. I need to position it so that I'm going to be in the center of that, and that fire is showing everyone around me. And on top of it, I want to be a part of other people's lives, and I want them to be a part of my lives. All that sounds fantastic. I love all of it. But you said that this is the Old Testament, and those were written to the Levites. Those were written to the priests. And you're right, they were. So turn your Bible to 1 Peter. 1 Peter is such a good book that they gave it a sequel for 2 Peter. New Testament, as you get to Revelation, you've gone too far, so you want to turn back around. But if we're going to keep this fire burning, these are the words of Peter. Now remember something. Peter's the guy that denied Christ not once, not twice, but 3 times. He denied him 3 times, the last time to his face to face with Jesus. And yet Jesus came back for him. So no matter how bad you've ever done anything, no matter what it is that you think you have to fix first, none of us have ever done that to the Son of God and then looked at him eye to eye to prove it. And yet Jesus still came back for him. The reason I share that is because some people are like, well, once saved, always saved. Or, can you walk away from your salvation? God has you in the palm of his hand. When you were his child, you were his child. He will never leave you nor forsake you. The guy that denied him 3 times, he came back for him. And had Judas come back to him, he would have forgiven him. So here we are in 1 Peter, in chapter 2, starting right at the beginning. One of my favorite words in the book, therefore. Whenever we read the book word therefore, what do? We stop and we ask, what is that? All right, nice. Therefore, rid yourselves of all malice and all deceit, hypocrisy, envy, and slander of every kind. Like newborn babies, crave pure spiritual milk, so that by it you may grow up in your salvation, now that you have tasted that the Lord is good. The time when our fire was highest, when we tasted, we knew that the Lord was good. It's when we were being fed and we were feeding ourselves. We got to that point where we grew with him. We continued to grow with Christ first. We allowed the Holy Spirit to move in our lives, and it tasted good. But something happened, and the fire started going out, and the fire got smaller, and the fire started to smolder. And some of us were not even sure if there was a fire still there. As you come to him, the living stone, rejected by men, but chosen by God and precious to him, you also, like living stones, are being built into a spiritual house to be a holy priesthood. Now notice something. As you come to him, the living stone, the essence stone, is capitalized. It's referencing God. It is representing Jesus Christ, his Son. But it says it is you also. So you is you and me, us also, for each one of us, like living stones, are being built into a spiritual house to be a holy priesthood. The priesthood was gone with the Levites, and yet those that were the chosen ones of Israel have now become the chosen ones that are believers. And the priesthood that walks before this world today are all those that have accepted Christ as their Savior. Never thought of yourself as a priest, did you? Never thought of yourself as a priestess, did you? And yet that is what we represent. That is the transition that took place. This is what Peter is sharing with you and with me. And he says, offering spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. Fast forward to verse 9. But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people belonging to God. You belong to God. When will you start acting like it? You are his child. When will you start acting like it? You can be refueled every single day. When will you choose to have that fuel refired? When will you choose to add more fuel to that fire? When will you choose to reposition the wood? When will you choose to be a living sacrifice and offer yourself and myself to others so that they can see God? Because they're not seeing it anywhere else. And sadly, we hold on to guilt. And because of that, we can never extend any grace because we're stuck. We're stuck in our past. We're stuck in our struggles. We're lost. We're alone. And we're discouraged. Because we don't feel that fire daily. And we don't arrange it so that God's fire is burning through us. And too many times we end up doing it alone. Peter finishes with this. Once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. Listen, wherever you're at right now, God has showered His mercy upon you. And if you haven't accepted that, you can accept it at any time. What is it you're waiting for? You know what, God, I really don't want your mercy. You know, I really love holding on to my guilt. I really love trying to do it my way. You know, this addiction isn't so bad. It's only been like over half my life. You know, the things I hide from other people, if it comes out, it comes out, but I really like to try to keep it hidden as much as I can. You know, the way that I speak to my wife, the way that I speak to my husband, the way I speak to my kids, the way I put everyone down, the way I constantly have to have contention, it's not so bad. This guilt thing's actually kind of fun. This stress that I have, not that big of a deal. No one ever says that. No one ever comes to me and says, you know what? I am so depressed and I am so happy about it. I am so anxious, and I'm not saying people are anxious. I'm so anxious and I actually want to kill my neighbor, and I think about it every single day. People don't come and tell me that stuff, and it's a really good thing. Right? I doubt so much and I worry so much. I just can't wait to get up tomorrow just so I can do it all over again. I am so much into drama and contention in my life that I think I can screw everyone up, and I can't wait. Who here has had a child? Do you remember that first time you held that baby? None of us go, one day, I'm going to be so mean to you that I'm going to put you into counseling. It's all going to be my fault. We laugh about it, but that's not something we do. Because that little baby that we love so much, one day they get on a school bus. And we can't wait till the school bus comes home and they get off it. And one day they go to this evil place they call middle school. You know what I'm saying, right? That's when pubernation starts. All that for everyone. They start hearing words and you're like, oh my goodness, I didn't even know that was a word. Who put those together? Then they get to high school. And it's almost like they're completely forgotten. And then the worst one, you ready for this? When they graduate from high school, and all the friends they thought they had friends aren't really friends, and they go off to college, and it's like everyone's forgotten. And so they have a choice as to the steps they're going to take. Did we fuel the fire enough with them that they will step to their faith? Or will they step to what this world has to offer? See, if we're not taking the morning every day and starting with that fuel, if we're not rearranging so that God is first, if we're not looking forward to the people that we meet, the people that God has brought into our lives in that fellowship, how in the world could we ever expect the ones that love us the most and that we love the most to represent a God that graced us with His Son, that when we ask into our heart is so powerful, and so passionate, and so personal for you? What is it that you'll choose? It's your fire. You fuel it, I fuel it. What will you choose today? Would you bow your heads, please, as the praise team comes up? Just take the